earliest memories of hearing about God was probably when I was around 4 or 5 years old. We lived in a little farming community in southeast Arkansas in Carlisle. And my mother was probably the spiritual leader of our family. My father was a good man and he loved the Lord, but he wasn't really the spiritual leader of our family. My mother was. I grew up in probably a typical Baptist home at that time. We had a Bible on the coffee table, and my mother would generally read the Bible, and she would read stories to us. And I heard the old stories, the Daniel and the lion's den and that sort of thing. But we didn't really attend church that much. It was just really kind of spotty here and there when we would go. Not really something in my life that was the most important thing, but it was just kind of put forth in my life of something that was important, but not the most important thing. My experience with being saved goes back again to probably with my mother and the way she raised us, being the spiritual leader of our household. I've heard John Chadwell mention this many times of the old church, and that's what I was raised in, is you need to fear God because he's watching you all the time, and when you do something bad, he's going to get you. So that's sort of what I thought is I needed to get right with God because God was going to get me. And I recall going to a Baptist church camp with some kids that I went to school with. And when they were there, they got baptized. So when we got back to church, they were all kind of pressuring me, you need to go up front. When they do the altar call, you need to go up front. So sure enough, they pressured me and I went up front and I was baptized that afternoon and nothing in my life changed. So really that's my experience with being saved there. I did that when I was 11 years old and absolutely nothing in my life changed. I thought what I was doing was putting on some kind of coat of protection to keep God from getting me for being bad. As I said, I grew up, my mom kind of instilled some of these things in me, and I believed in God and I was fearful of God, but I never really realized a relationship with God. But my wife, Catherine, was raised in the Church of Christ. And her parents, if the church door was open, they went. And they really instilled in her good roots, good soil. But just like all of us, she strayed away from it. But she had that good root, that good soil. So when our daughter was born, she knew, hey, we're not doing what we should be doing. So she started going to church. And I wished them well and let them go. And it didn't take long for me to get guilted into, hey, you're supposed to be the man in charge of this family. You're supposed to be leading your family and you're letting your wife do it because you won't step up and do it. And so I think she taught me to step up and be the spiritual leader of my family, and I owe that to her. And if not for her, I don't know where I would be, but I don't think I would be in a good relationship with God if it weren't for my wife. We're always lukewarm in church. I've been one of the most lukewarm people that you've ever seen. Our daughter, Madison, had been struggling with drugs and alcohol, and we tried everything. I mean, if you've been through this struggle, you know what it's like. We've tried everything. And I finally got to the point where I just gave up. I prayed to God and prayed and wanted him to help, and it seemed like nothing was working. But I wasn't putting in any effort at all. I was just trying to rub a bottle and get God to do something for me to help my family, and nothing changed. And finally, one day, my daughter called us from jail. And she said, I'm tired of this life. I need help. So we found a ministry called John 3:17 that we'd already known about. We tried to get her to go a couple of years before that. She didn't really want to, and it probably wouldn't have been a good time because the ministry wasn't really established good. But thankfully, the jail that she was in released her. The judge released her and let her come to John 3:17. My wife and I started coming to support her. We were going to help her through this. Little did we know God was going to change our entire family. Not only did my daughter get the healing she needed, it finally dawned on me that God was the most important thing in the universe and that I needed to surrender myself to him and start doing his will. And we've been on that journey here at Rimmel for probably about 6 years. That's the story of this beard. I made a vow to God that if my daughter stayed off drugs and alcohol, I'd never shave again. And I pray that I die with this long beard and I'm put in a casket with it. But Rimmel in John 3:17 have probably been the biggest change in my family's life. We are so blessed that God brought us here. The disciples were with Jesus, and he told them the story of the rich young ruler and how he went away, and he told him, how hard it was going to be, for nearly impossible for anybody to enter the kingdom of heaven. And so the disciples said, what will we do? There's no way we can get there. And that's when he told them, Matthew 19:26, with man things are impossible, but with God all things are possible. And that's what I have found with God. Do not give up on him. I was ready to give up, ready to throw in the towel. And even though now I get disheartened and depressed and down about things, I know not to give up, because I've seen him do things that are unbelievable, that I never fathomed would happen. I'm enjoying a beautiful daughter, 2 beautiful granddaughters, a wonderful church family, just a relationship that's beyond anything that I could ever hope for. And it's all because of Jesus and what he's done in my family's life. I'm Tony Malnar. I'm an elder and a member here at Rimmel Church, and this is why I believe.